A toad!
Something is coming.
Hey everybody, welcome to The Finer Things, the show where we examine games for their artistic value. I'm Quinn Foose, and in case you were unaware, the definition of insanity is doing the exact same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So, in order to at least keep up appearances that I am not in fact insane, we're going to be doing something a little bit different on today's show. Usually we discuss individual games, but today we'll be discussing an action-packed series coming from Ubisoft. It's Far Cry. The Far Cry franchise began in March of 2004 when Crytek developed the first game to showcase their CryEngine software. In the beginning, the game was all about surviving dangerous landscapes with little to no aid in navigation and supply gathering. The newer games, primarily from the third installment to the new recent fifth game, focus a lot more on the narrative of the main questline and don't put as much emphasis on survival as was originally given. Some view this shift in focus as a stumbling block for the franchise, but good things did come out of the decision to change things up. This brings us to the first focus of today's episode, the villains. Most of the characters in the Far Cry games are fairly two-dimensional. The villains, however, are by far the most interesting characters in the Far Cry games. The most respected of the baddies is Vaas Montenegro from Far Cry 3. Vaas was one of the earliest villains in video gaming to really flesh out the concept of insanity. This being so refreshing for players made him a memorable character who we all wanted to invest time into beating. The success of Vaas in Far Cry 3 begged for the developers to continue this level of performance from villains in Far Cry 4, Primal, and Far Cry 5. It is arguable whether or not Ubisoft actually met the standards that they set with 3 in the future games. Far Cry 4 and 5's antagonists, Pagan Min and Joseph Seed, were interesting to learn more about. They just didn't have the factor of freshness that Vaas carried when 3 released. Far Cry Primal's villain fell short entirely. The second artistic element that stands out for Far Cry is its visuals during spiritual encounters, often drug-induced, that run throughout the series. Hallucinogens are heavily showcased in the games, predominantly in Far Cry Primal and Far Cry 5, in the forms of concoctions cooked up by your shaman pal or the bliss created by Joseph Seed's sister Faith. These sequences are the most visually intriguing portions of the Far Cry games by far, and are a refreshing way to see the developers visually express their story amidst the normal gameplay loops set in a familiar landscape. There's a lot to know and experience with this series, so make sure to check out the Far Cry games. Even if you aren't a fan of the villains or the hallucinogenic visuals in the game, you'll most likely still enjoy the ridiculously destructive aspects. Don't miss out on this journey into madness, and thank you again for joining me today on The Finer Things. Make sure not to miss the next episode when we examine a new game. Thanks for watching.